What's up, guys? I wanted to go over a few things with you going into spring. Now that the snow has really melted in southwest Michigan here for the most part, it doesn't really look like we'll get too much more cold weather that could end in snow recently, or in the near future. Um, so that's one thing. If you are waiting till now to think about buying bees, uh, a couple of places will be more accessible than others. A lot of the Michigan beekeepers who do breed Michigan genetics or Michigan queens will be sold out. If not, you'll definitely be on a waiting list. And at this point, too, a lot of the places that you will be able to order from that do have packages and nukes and things available will be getting them from more warm weather southern states. Um, Georgia specifically, but some of them do come from Tennessee, Florida, California as well. But most of them will come from Florida that do end up here in Michigan. So that's one thing that you need to think about with genetics. They are going to be a little bit more warm weather tolerant, not so much cold weather tolerant. Depending on what drones they mate with up here in Michigan, if they requeen themselves, all that kind of thing. It could change, every year. So um, don't wait until your bees show up to start thinking about hive management, colony management, hive behavior, food resources, and that kind of thing. Have a plan set up in place ahead of time. Have your hive built or ordered ahead of time, or at least in the period of time that it takes for you to order your bees and for them to show up. Don't wait for them to show up before you start learning things. Learn ahead of time. It'll save you a lot of time and big headaches, especially your first season going through. A lot of people ask me, especially people who want to get into beekeeping but don't really know if they have enough space or if it's allowed where they live. One thing that I tell people a lot of times is you really don't need a whole lot of space at all. And I like to show them a picture that I was sent of somebody who lives in a city, in an apartment high-rise building, and in on their windowsill, instead of having a bird box or a little windowsill garden, they have a beehive. So they do it right out of their apartment in the middle of a big city. You don't need a lot of space. And you'd be surprised, in big cities, a lot of the smaller park areas, um, the little bushes and trees and things that get planted on the sidewalks, that can support bees pretty well. So you really don't need a whole lot of space at all. I always say the biggest complaint really that you'll run into is if your neighbors complain. And in that case, I would say paint it to look like something else, disguise it a little bit. And I mean, shoot, if they don't see it, if it doesn't bother them, why tell them about it? um, don't expect to take honey in your first season, especially if you're getting a package or a swarm in your first season. A nuke is a little bit different depending on how well they're doing, how well they build up in the spring. But definitely, if you have a package or a swarm, don't expect to take any honey the first year, especially with the way that our winters have been going in Michigan. You want to make sure that your bees have enough food to survive winter. And if in the fall they feel a bit light, make sure you know a really good sugar syrup recipe and pollen patty recipe if you don't buy them ahead of time. You want to be able to feed your bees and for them to survive winter. You don't want to be that beekeeper that has to buy new bees every year. Um, and your bees can survive on sugar syrup alone, but it's like a human eating pizza alone all the time. It is doable, but it's not very good for your body. Just like that's not very good for the bees, so having a pollen substitute is a good idea. Oh, let's see. Learn about the health issues and pests in your area ahead of time. That goes with learning, having a management plan. Um, a big point of the management plan should be to have an overwintering, or at least an idea of what you want to do to get your bees through winter. Are you going to put up a wind block? Are you going to put them in a shed, climate controlled? depending on what stage and what level you're at. And it's always recommended for new beekeepers to get 2 hives to start, 2 colonies, so that way you can compare the two and really see if one's doing better than the other, or if one's getting into a food source that the other one isn't. It's a good kind of experiment to do in your first year. That way, too, it also helps kind of limit your questions a little bit if you feel like you're bothering people, which you're not. A lot of people, if you have the questions, somebody else does too. So, um, but if you have 2 hives and you look at one and say, hey, this is, I don't know if this is normal or not, and you look at your other one and that one's doing it too, it's more than likely something that's okay. So, unless it's a pest, unless they're dying, or there's an issue like that, then that's not okay. Um, but those are a few things to think about going into spring, trying to get your bees getting set up. It's always better to have a plan than to not have a plan, and to think about things before your bees show up. So don't wait till the last minute. If you have any other comments or questions, definitely let me know, and I will try to get something set up on that topic. So.